So Pecharunt is our newest mythical Pokemon, and it has the ability to control people and Pokemon with its poisonous mochi. It did this with the Loyal 3, granting them new powers and making them into legendaries in exchange for being able to essentially control them. But what if this happened with even more Pokemon? A little while ago, I looked at what this could be like with other legendary Pokemon, but since the Loyal 3 were basically made into legendaries by Pecharunt's powers, we're now gonna go ahead and see what it would be like if more regular Pokemon were made into legendary Pokemon by Pecharunt. This is gonna be a fun one, so let's check it out. So these mochi-ized legendaries have been brought to you today in part by today's wonderful sponsor, Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. These two are subscription boxes that bring you authentic Japanese candy and snacks every month that come straight from Japan. I've been getting these boxes for a while myself, and they're honestly great. And this month is special because the boxes have a special Valentine's theme. Tokyo Treat's theme is Be My Valentine, and it's got amazing stuff like strawberry shortcake flavored Kit Kats and Pokemon heart-shaped candies. They're so adorable! Sakura Co's theme is Valentine's Indulgence, and comes with a ton of awesome treats as well, like these grape-flavored gummies, and it even comes with an authentic piece of Japanese tableware each month as well, which is very nice. So if you would like to grab either of these boxes for you or that special someone in your life, you can do so with the links in the description below, and when you do, you can also get $5 off of your first box with code HOOPS at checkout, which directly supports the channel as well and videos just like this, so it's also very much appreciated. So be sure to check that out, and a big thank you to Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co for supporting the channel. Okay, so the first Pokemon we are going to look at, because I'm super biased, is Cyndaquil. In my defense though, Cyndaquil is a pretty cool and popular Pokemon regardless of my own opinion, and it would just be really neat to see what it would look like as a Pecharunt-infused legendary. So without further ado, this is Finaquil, my Pecharunt-ized version of Cyndaquil. As always, a big shout out goes to my guy Oscar Belmonte for doing the artwork on the designs in this video. Be sure to check him out with the links in the description below, but honestly, as a Cyndaquil fanboy, I think this turned out pretty great. It is naturally a poison fire type, and I think the blend of Cyndaquil vibes and Loyal 3 vibes work really well here. You've obviously got the back flames and cute little snout of Cyndaquil, with a little bit of Typhlosion's body style added in there as well for good measure, but then you've also got that black and purple color scheme of the Loyal 3. You've also got that weaselly and conniving look on its face, and then of course, it's also got the toxic chain on as well, which it wears sorta like a vest, so Finaquil's definitely got that drip going on. And now, speaking of drip, that brings us to the name, because the name Finaquil may have already caught your attention. So it essentially follows the naming scheme of the Loyal 3, however, they also in turn have an interesting and somewhat broad naming scheme. They basically just use a corrupted version of some kind of silly word or slang word, like Okidogi coming from Okidoki, or Munkidori coming from Hunky Dory. So, Finaquil comes from Finna, which is a newer piece of slang that you may or may not have heard of if you're hip with all the lingo these days, and it also comes from Cyndaquil. And also, to be honest, doesn't this design just look like a guy who would go around saying Finna all the time? Like, as goofy as it is, I think it just fits perfectly, especially because goofy is kind of the point of these Pokemon anyway. I also wasn't sure whether to include the original Pokemon's names on these new Pokemon, since they're supposed to be separate Pokemon of their own, and there's not really any precedent for it one way or the other either, so I ultimately did a little bit of both with the designs that you're going to see throughout this video. Finally, we've also got to talk about its origin, because I didn't just pick Cyndaquil because he's my favorite. As we know, the Loyal Three became the Loyal Three because they all had a wish for themselves. Okidogi wanted to be stronger, Munkidori wanted to be smarter, and Fezandipiti wanted to be more beautiful. So, little BB Cyndaquil, as a fairly shy and timid Pokemon, wanted to be more courageous, to be able to stand up for itself, and that is what Pecharunt granted to it in exchange for use of its powers. It would have been awesome to have some Pokemon be able to be controlled like this in the Scarlet and Violet epilogue, in addition to the people that were also controlled, as a way to spice up the epilogue a little bit, and also to add just a couple more new Pokemon at the same time that you have to fight against and could catch. And Cyndaquil, in my humble opinion, would have been an awesome pick for that. And since the theme of these transformations are Pokemon who long for something, how about we do Mimikyu next? Mimikyu is a poster child for this kind of thing, since it desperately longs to be as popular as Pikachu, so that's naturally what it would ask for from Pecharunt. But as we all know, Pecharunt's abilities are rooted in poison and possession, so Mimikyu would end up looking a little bit more like this instead. This is Grinvidius, and it is the result of Pecharunt taking advantage of Mimikyu's desires and using it for its own gain. Sure, it has given Mimikyu a further resemblance to Pikachu, but in a way that is distorted by the toxic chain, and Pecharunt's own desire to take advantage of Mimikyu's powers. Grinvidius is a poison fairy type, and the effects of the toxic chain have made Mimikyu more envious of Pikachu than ever before in this form. Despite more closely resembling Pikachu, it has come to the realization that it won't ever be able to be as popular or beloved as Pikachu, and so that jealousy and longing has turned to envy and rage. This one was admittedly tricky from a design perspective, because it had to be made to look more like Pikachu, but it also couldn't completely lose the Mimikyu disguise design either, otherwise it wouldn't really have any connection to Mimikyu whatsoever from a visual standpoint. So, what resulted from all of that is this Jason Voorhees-esque look, which does look a bit crazy, I'll be honest, but I guess that's what you get when Mimikyu can't take it anymore and finally snaps. And, not to mention, is also effectively brainwashed by Pecharunt. It's even using its former Pikachu tail as a club because it's just had enough at this point, and the toxic chain has also become its new Pikachu tail in almost a sort of mocking fashion that kind of represents how Mimikyu's innocent desire was basically used against it. Now we gotta get into the name though, because I really like the name Grinvidius, as it sounds pretty cool in my opinion, and its origins also hit the nail right on the head. It comes from grin, which is another word for smile, and that's not only what it's doing in its design, but it also kinda sorta follows the trend of the Loyal Three being named after positive descriptors like hunky-dory or serendipity. Additionally though, it also comes from invidious, which just sounds sinister in general, so it's a perfect fit, but it also means having or showing mean resentment of another's possessions or advantages, which perfectly describes this Pokemon. I must admit though that this particular design would probably never ever happen for real, because it effectively takes Pikachu's likeness and turns it into a maniac, which probably wouldn't be the best for branding, but Mimikyu does fit the bill of a Pokemon who would look to Pecharunt for help with its desires, so it's an idea that I thought was worth exploring. Now we come to a really cool one though, and that is Eevee. There is so much potential with a Pecharunt-ized Eevee, but there's also reason to legitimately do it too. You see, Eevee just wants to be loved for being, well, Eevee, because everyone always gets an Eevee just so they can evolve it as soon as possible into the Pokemon that they actually care about. It gets overlooked in favor of its evolutions all the time and just feels unloved, so it just wants to be loved like all of the other evolutions. And lucky for it, Pecharunt can help with that, in a sinister kind of way. Meet Mochion, Eevee's legendary Pecharunt form. Now, first things first, I gotta touch on the name because it's honestly amazing. Mochion obviously comes from Mochi, and Eon from the evolutions, with Mochi in particular referring to the poisonous Mochi that Pecharunt uses to control its victims. And then also, when you say it, Mochion, it just flows absolutely beautifully. Additionally, Penny, upon being controlled by Pecharunt in the Scarlet and Violet epilogue, even says Mochion herself, which this is also a bit of a reference to. So this name really couldn't be more perfect if it tried. If it does have one downfall though, it's that it doesn't really follow the names of the Loyal Three that much. So I also came up with an alternative name as well for what it's worth, and that name is Dandion, which comes from dandy as in everything's fine and dandy. And I think that does sound pretty nice as well and also goes along with the theme. So you'll have to let me know which name you like in the comments, but overall to me, Mochion is a name that is worth breaking some rules for, so that is what I'm personally going to go with. The other thing that I was also debating over with Mochion was its typing, because following along with every other Loyal 3 member who is a dual-typed Poison-type Pokemon, Mochion would become Poison Normal, as it gains the Poison type and then retains the Normal type from Eevee. But a part of me also really wants Mochion to be a pure poison type as well, and have this be the way that we get a poison evolution, because that would just be so awesome and work so well. The problem is that technically it wouldn't be an evolution because you would probably consider this a legendary Pokemon like the Loyal 3, and as the title of the video would also suggest, so it kinda complicates that whole idea a little, but otherwise, I think it's fantastic. Like, just look at this thing. It even has a Toxic Chain earring, for crying out loud. It's just a chef's kiss of a Pokemon in my opinion, and again, shout out to Oscar, check him out with the links below if you haven't already. What do you think about Mochion though, and how would you go about utilizing this idea? Would you make it a poison type evolution, or would you do something else with it instead? Be sure to let me know in the comments below, and let me know your thoughts on the other two mons that we covered today as well. Also, be sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you want to support the channel even more, you can also check out my Pokemon remixes on Spotify and other streaming services. It honestly helps out a ton right back here, and it's extremely appreciated. With that said, I'll be back very soon with another new video, and until then, as always, thank you guys so much for watching this one. I really appreciate it, and I will smell you guys later.